Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest look back at Talking Heads. The future running of the Villa and Gaiety, dementia awareness and the state pension age for women were all featured on the programme this week. Here's Stu Peters with more.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
Does the island need parliamentary reform? It's something that Douglas MHK is asking the public. Bill Malarkey has launched an online poll to try to gauge public opinion over the possibility of reform. The Douglas South MHK hopes to use the findings as part of his evidence to the Lord Lisvane independent inquiry next month. So, does the island need parliamentary reform? Is it vital that the political system's modernised as soon as possible? Or is the whole review something that should be put on hold until after September's general election? Should the efforts of the current administration be focused on other issues until then? Simon's been in touch. He said there's a more comprehensive poll on the Isle of Man News and Politics Facebook page, Stu. I suppose that there can be as many polls as people are prepared to put up, as long as the information gets to Lord Lisvane in time while he's looking at this whole thing, then it's probably a good thing. But yes, if you're a Facebook fan, then it looks as though you've got two options. Simon tells us that there's another one, another Facebook page that's got a more comprehensive poll on there, so maybe you look at both of them. Or not. Jenny sent me an email. She says, sorry, but if I've got to join Facebook to fill in a questionnaire, then I won't be taking part. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that you could always join and not put any information on there, Jenny. You don't have to end up playing Farmville or coping with thousands of friend requests and things like that. You know, Facebook's great. You can use it as much or as little as you want, really. Of course, Timwell, this is from Cliffy, particularly Legco needs reforming, but unless these reforms can be enforced without being vetoed by Legco or Comin, the poll's about as much use as a chocolate fireguard or an MLC. Not on the fence then this week. Let's go to the lines, and we've got Jeffrey on the line. Hello, Jeffrey.
Now, I was ringing up to agree with the lady who said because it's on Facebook, she won't go on the poll.
She won't do it, yeah. So you're not a fan then of Facebook?
No, because I went on a while ago for something like you said, just sign up, do something, come off it.
Yeah.
But I've been bombarded with spam ever since. And my spam filter gets overloaded. Yeah, so I won't join in either.
You must have put your email address on it then if you're getting spam.
Well, you have to sign up.
Yes, that's true.
It's part of the signing up process.
It is, yes, you're right. Yeah.
And that's all I gave. I didn't give where I live or anything else, just my email address.
Ooh.
And then I got loads and loads of spam afterwards.
Yeah, I get loads of spam as well. I wonder if that's where it's come from. Yeah.
It is. It will be. Well, anywhere where you've signed up and you have to give your email address, it immediately lets everybody have access to that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't join in any sort of online polls. I also actually, to some extent, object to the presumption that everybody has access to the internet.
Okay.
I mean, I do. I've got a computer at home. I've got broadband and everything. But a lot of people don't. And yet government is particularly guilty of trying to force everybody to access information on the net.
This isn't government, in fairness. This is one MHK who's doing it, one presumes, off his own bat. And therefore, you know, he couldn't be sending out thousands of questionnaires.
Nearly every government department contact. I'm particularly in contact with the planning department, and they always say, oh, you can go online and find out this, that and the other, or get forms and download them. Well, yes, I can, but a lot of people can't.
Well, usually with government things, Jeffrey, there is usually a paper alternative. So if you phone up the department and say, I'm not online, send me the paperwork, they'll usually do it.
Indeed, that's what I got. But it's the fact that it's the default position that you go online and get it. I rang up for something the other day, and they said, well, and that it was for something that was written in the paper, and they'd given the website address as well as a phone number. I phoned them up, and they immediately said, well, you can go online and get this. And I said, well, it also says you can phone. Oh, well, we want everybody to go online and do it. They did eventually concede and send me the paper information.
Okay.
And I'm just getting irritated by the fact that they've default position is that everybody should do everything online.
All right, fair comment. I mean, I disagree with you, but I think it's a fair comment. I think that increasingly people are going to be pushed to do things online because it's just so much cheaper. I think it's inevitable that more and more things are going to be done online. But Geoffrey makes a good point, and I think that certainly for the time being, as long as there's always a paper alternative, then that's sensible. Facebook polls obviously biased towards people who use Facebook, therefore should not be taken as a fair reflection of public opinion, says David H. Just filled in Bill Malarkey's poll. Only 6 questions, doesn't take long, but missed the information you mentioned on the other poll. Can you repeat the details, please, says Paulie. Yes, in fact, it's another Facebook poll. It's facebook.com groups /Isle of Man News Politics / and then there's a link to the poll on there. So it's on Facebook, and if you go to the search engine in Facebook, the search box, and just put IOM News Politics, then that'll probably take you to it, I would have thought. Clearly, the present system's flawed, as 5 MHKs being a majority of Comyn can decide matters by using collective responsibility, whereas all MHKs are elected on an equal basis, says one of our contributors. Yes, an official survey would carry more weight, though, says somebody else. Well, I think we've all got the opportunity to write to Lord Lisvane about this if we feel strongly enough about it. Until the cost of broadband's more affordable, those living on the breadline will not be using it to vote or anything else, says Tom. Stu, what's the name of the Facebook page where I can find Bill Malarkey's survey, asks Pam. I've not got it up on screen at the moment. I think if you go onto Facebook and type in Bill Malarkey, then it'll take you through and there'll be a link somewhere there. So it should be reasonably easy to find, I think, Pam. We're joined on the line now by Bill Malarkey, MHK. Are you getting much of a response to this survey?
Indeed, I am. In fact, I'm very pleased with the response I've had already. I'm into the hundreds when I left the house earlier this morning. So, obviously, I don't go and check it every 5 minutes and I'm out. But I just wanted to clear up 1 or 2 points with you, Stu.
Okay.
Yeah, why did I use Facebook? Facebook is by far the most popular social media platform we have on the island. So it has to be a starting place. But you don't have to be on Facebook to do the poll.
Oh.
Max Radio, for instance, has got the link to the Facebook site. So if anybody wants to go to the Max Radio news story, they've put the link in to the questionnaire.
Yes.
Now, if you're not on Facebook, you can't hit the submit button at the end. But what you do is, if you want to just hit copy the page, paste it onto either a Word document and post it to me, or paste it onto an email.
Yes.
And email it to me. It will be included.
Gotcha.
I promise.
Gotcha.
And confidentiality will be kept. What's great, and what I really did appreciate this morning, at the bottom there's a comment box where people are giving their own views on how they see the future looking. And there's some great ones through this morning already. In fact, I would say probably about a quarter to a third of the ones that I'd received this morning all had gone to the trouble of putting comments in them boxes. Now, them comments in their whole will be given to Lord Lisvane when I see him on the 1st of June. This is why I've done it. I think, Stu, I've been very outspoken in what I think and how Ledgco should be voted and Chief Minister and going forward. But this is not about me. This is about the people I represent, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm guessing that what's going to happen is that you're going to sort of aggregate views. If you get, say, 1,000 responses to this, you're not going to send 1,000 responses to Lord Lisvane, are you? You're going to put them together in groups or whatever.
Well, the survey itself will come out with percentages and amount of people have actually done it. But what I will do is any constructive views that come through as well will also be given to Lord Lisvane.
Okay.
I think that's very important. Now, it's been commented about that there's another poll going on. I wasn't aware of this until this morning, and I briefly had a look at it. But being honest with you, it's quite a complex poll, and it goes into actually some personal details and personal sort of remarks in the poll. Mine is straightforward about the structure of where we go forward.
I think 6 questions in yours, isn't it?
That's right. No more. I just want to know the view of the people so that when I sit in front of Lord Lisvane, I can say to him, this is what the people of the Isle of Man want.
Yes.
And I think that's very, very important. To be honest, Lord Lisvane's review could change the future of Manx politics forever. So, when it comes to July sitting and the review is there and decisions are made, it's too late.
Yeah.
The review will have been done. So please, 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 You don't have to be on Facebook to do the poll.
Okay, so you
Just
can go
copy
on
it.
and you can copy and paste it into something else if you're not a Facebook member.
Yes, we've actually put that on the instructions this morning because I've already had emails, copies of it through. I've had quite a few phone calls saying, Bill, how do we do this without being on Facebook?
Gotcha.
So this is the way forward. I want as many people, but those on Facebook, please share it.
Excellent. Good stuff. Thank you very much. That's Bill Malarkey, MHK, South Douglas. And so, like he says, there are two more ways that you can do that. You can copy it and paste it into either an email or a piece of paper and send it through the post to him. Gee, there's no option on Mr. Malarkey's poll to abolish Sledgeco, which most people seem to want. You have to enter it in the comments section. Well, yes, but you could do if you wanted to.
The Nation Station. Manx Radio.
Should government partner with a private promoter for the operation of the Villa and Gaiety Theatre Complex? The Economic Development Minister has clarified his department's current position on a tender process for the Villa Gaiety Complex. There's been a delay to the move to appoint a commercial promoter for the site. So, should the running of the Villa and Gaiety be put into the hands of a private promoter? Would that make the complex more viable, do you think, or would you prefer to see it continue to be run directly by government? Our first text in, I wonder how much money they both lost last year, asks David. I don't know the answer to that, David. What are your concerns about this? I worry that when government talks about keeping some level of control over the thing, but then having a partnership with a private firm on this, my worry, I suppose, is that if any events make a loss, then the government will probably end up picking up the tab. And if there are any profits to be made, the private contractors will probably take those. So I worry sometimes that these things don't seem like a particularly good or effective use of resources. But I don't know. It might be that a private contractor come in and breathe new life into the entire complex and get more use out of it. I suppose that government needs to keep an amount of control to make sure that all the Amdram groups and people like that are still able to use the facilities as they do very successfully at the moment. But, you know, a private promoter might want different things altogether, and it might just be a case of getting more bums on seats. So, you know, would you object if they started having bingo nights at the Gaiety, for example? Because, you know, it's a guaranteed way of making money. Get in touch and tell us what you think about this on 66. Stu, here we go again. He's trying to sound intelligent. Lawrence Skelly is getting a corporate partner for the TT. Was getting a corporate partner for the TT. Now he's doing the same to the Villa. He's told staff that there are no jobs to transfer them to, so they either have to go with the 12-month contract with the new owners, after which they can be laid off with no redundancy money, which DED would have to pay if they hadn't made one of the terms for the new owners, or possibly kept on with the wage reduction. The other option is to look for new jobs in the private sector. Very underhand, Mr. Skelly, but your salary and pension will be safe, so that's all that matters. That from Jane. Yeah, well, I did hear in the interview Lawrence Skelly saying that, you know, there was no plan to reduce staff numbers or to get rid of people. They could always be redeployed in government. Well, I suppose that if you're running a theatre, there aren't that many other jobs within government that you could do. I don't know. Maybe people can retrain for different roles in similar sort of jobs. I don't know. If you've got a point of view on this one, do you think that it would be a breath of fresh air to get a different operator in for the Villa Marina and Gaiety complex, or do you think it should stay very firmly within government hands? Let's have a look. I'm sure you've realised that substantial losses are being made. Lots of reasons for that, primarily the lack of theatre expertise by civil servants picking the acts. Okay. Stewie's told me there's little chance of jobs within government, so I take that as no jobs, says Jane. Okay. What's that? Those staff with experience of running a theatre will simply be able to transfer to the House of Keys, surely, says Paul. An element of cynicism there, I seem to think. What else? As long as no user agreement, I know what you mean, says Alex. Okay. The Villa, etc. should be privatised. Employ too many staff, not efficient because of this. What amazes us is the coffee shop at the NSC is government run like the coffee shop at Nobles. It's like communist Russia. When you go for a job there, you have to go the long-winded civil servant form filling process. As a going concern, this would be better run by a private company. Government don't know better. Right, okay, well, I'll take your word for it, I don't know. Something needs to be done at the Villa. They have a beautiful facility, and yet often enough at a major concert or event, there's just one coffee or tea machine in operation, no bar open, and not even ice cream on sale. The Gaiety have volunteers to take tickets and sell ice cream. I'm one, while paid staff do the licensed bar and coffee tea bar. Perhaps the Villa could do something like this, says Pam. OK, some good thoughts coming in. Stu, up will go usage costs, then ticket prices, down will go attendance. Dandara will have another prime site. Regards from Brian. Bert in Port St Mary's got her out the wrong side of bed this morning again. Hi Stu, can we not get a private contractor to run the Isle of Man instead of this useless shower that we call the government? Be very careful what you wish for. I mean, let's just take this to its illogical conclusion. Just supposing we've got somebody like Alan Sugar to come in and corporatise the Isle of Man completely. Like I say, be careful what you wish for, because you'd probably put income tax up straight away to solve any financial problems that we've got. Probably double council house rents and things the first day that he arrives. There would be all sorts of things that financially would make a lot of sense, but actually we'd all be up in arms about. I suspect that an awful lot, and it's always the same before an election, it's always the worst government in living history, and they're all going to get voted out and have to find new jobs after September. We hear that every 5 years, so I'm not surprised that we're hearing that now. And yes, there are things about this government that I find irritating or depressing, but I suspect, and it's only a suspicion, I suspect that they've probably got more right than they've got wrong over the last 5 years, which must have been the most difficult for any administration since the war, I would have thought. It won't be long before this government's looking for somebody to run the Isle of Man, similar thought. Bring back the beauty queen pageants in the gardens in the summer. I'd go. Would you, Stu? Says Davy. Yes, I would, but I'd probably find it difficult to defend my position about that, because it's all beauty pageants and things like that are seen as being demeaning to women these days. So I'd have to be a bit more right on about it. But well, nice sunny day. Beer in hand, pretty girls on the stage. What's not to like about that? Who says it has to be just females in a beauty contest? Well, that's a very good question, and that'd make it right on, so that'd be all right, wouldn't it? And I suppose I could sort of get my kit off and put a thought. No, that's not a nice thought at all. But yeah, get some good-looking young fellas there as well, strutting the stuff. That'd be the answer. The other answer, of course, is it depends on who the private contractor is. What they ought to do is to get Peter Kay over to run the Villa Gaiety, as Brian Potter, do the whole thing in character, and he can put some gigs on as well. That'd sell out, wouldn't it?
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We're finding out more about the events taking place next week to mark Dementia Awareness Week. It's a condition which affects 44 million people worldwide. Dementia is an umbrella term for a variety of conditions which lead to the deterioration of brain function, including Alzheimer's disease. To tell us more about what's going to be happening next week to highlight the condition and the support available, we're joined in the studio by dementia support worker for the Alzheimer's Society Isle of Man, Susan Walker. Good afternoon, Susan, and thanks for joining us on the programme today.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here.
Good. It's a horrible word, dementia, but I guess it's actually quite accurate. You know, it means losing your mind, doesn't it? Demented. Yeah. You've lost your mind, and at its worst, I guess that's what we're actually talking about, rather than sugarcoat this.
We are. Basically, the brain deteriorates and gradually degenerates and dies.
Yes. Yeah, and I saw something on one of the news sites this week. I can't remember which actress or actor it was who said that they worried more about that than about cancer or heart disease. And I think a lot of people feel like that. You know, we can deal with sort of physical illness, but mental illness scares a lot of people, doesn't it?
It does, and there's been a lot of stigma about mental illness. My mother, in fact, was diagnosed with vascular and Alzheimer's disease. And as it progressed, the person that she had been no longer existed. She was just a shell. But she could live well with it.
Well, I'm guessing that it's unbearable for the people surrounding the person with any form of dementia, but they might not even be aware of it, I'm guessing. I don't know.
That does often happen. They live in their own little world, and you're absolutely right. It's the family members who see that deterioration, and they see the person that they knew gradually disappear and really find it very difficult to cope with.
Oh, virtually impossible, I would have thought. You know, if one day you're not recognised by a parent, you know, it just must be unbearable. So how can you help people like that? How can you help the carers as much as the person who's got the problem?
Well, I actually run a course for carers, which seems to be going down extremely well across the island. It brings carers together for a couple of hours every other week for 4 sessions. And apart from me doing an input about dementia and the sorts of behaviours they might see and how they can have strategies to help the person with dementia, we also look at the carer and say that they have to remain strong. They must look after themselves because they're the ones who basically have to be strong to look after the person with dementia.
I'm guessing part of the coping strategy is not to become irritated by it, because it would be very easy, especially if you've got an elderly relative who, is starting to exhibit these sort of symptoms, to get irritated by them. And I guess it must be hard not to do that.
It's very hard, because when a person is diagnosed initially with dementia, they're very likely to be repeating questions over and over again. And I know I did it with my mother. You respond once, you might respond twice in the same way, but the 100th time it gets really irritating.
Oh, I've told you this already.
That's exactly right. But what you have to remember with a person with dementia, that every time they ask that question is the very first time to them, because the previous times have just gone out of their mind and they don't know they've ever said them before.
And I'm guessing that medically there's not a huge amount of help with drugs and things. There will be drugs, I suppose, but I suppose they're of limited use to people.
Yeah, absolutely right. And there was a very interesting programme on on BBC Two last night about Alzheimer's disease. They are investing so much in trying to find medication, really find what the causes are, where does it start? But it just hasn't happened in the past. So it's going to take time for all of that to be found out. And they're hoping there will be a cure one day.
Is this something that's on the rise, or is it just that we're getting better at diagnosing it? Or has it always been the case that older people do become forgetful and it's just that now we're putting a label on it?
Well, to start with, it's not actually a natural part of ageing. I have worked with people in their 40s, 50s and 60s who have been diagnosed with dementia. OK, there's not very many of those. But no, it has been around for a long time. It is just that we are getting much better at diagnosing it and then putting support in place so that the people can live well with it.
I suppose that's the difference between this and a lot of things, physical things that we talk about, where the medics all say, well, if it's discovered early enough, then there's a lot that we can do to try and help. With this, I'm guessing that the earlier you diagnose it, the sooner you can put coping mechanisms in place rather than actually try and solve the problem.
Yeah, you're completely right there. The trouble is, it's such a gradual process to it being diagnosed. And even then, a person with dementia who is displaying some of these symptoms can have good days and bad days. And the first port of call for a diagnosis is the GP. If I give you the example of my mother, I went with her to the GP. It was one of her good days. So every question the GP asked, she answered beautifully.
Lucidly,
And at the end of that conversation, the GP said, there's nothing wrong. Come back in 6 months. Yeah. Now, I'd seen her on bad days and I knew there was something wrong, but we had to go with what he said. So we had to go away and come back. So the diagnosis is very, very difficult in the early stages. And as I described to people, I run Dementia Friends sessions to give people an awareness. You don't identify somebody with dementia unless you're talking to them. They don't have a walking stick. They don't wear glasses. They don't have a hearing aid. And so it is very difficult to know whether the person you are talking to at any time actually has dementia or not.
Well, without being unkind about it, it's a case of lights are on. Is anybody home, I suppose, in some cases. If people want more information, how do they find that? Is there a website, a phone number?
Well, we have a Facebook, Alzheimer's Society Isle of Man, but our phone number in the office is 613 181.
613181.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast featuring highlights from the programme over the past week.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Is it right that the state pension retirement age for women is being brought into line with that of men? Changes to the retirement age for women have been phased in for some time now, but all those born on or after December the 6th, 1953 will retire at the same age as their male counterparts. The state retirement age itself is also rising for all Manx residents, again phased in from 65 for those born in the mid-50s up to 68 for those born on April the 6th, 1978 or later. But there's been a claim the changes for women born in the 1950s aren't fair. The changes have been driven by the need to equalise retirement age for men and women, and rising life expectancy is also a factor. Is it right that the state retirement age for women has been brought into line with that for men? Should more time be taken to phase the changes in? Or is the current timeline pretty much fine as it is? What do we think about it? Let's go to the lines and see what Ken makes of this. Hello, Ken.
It's an old hobby horse of mine. This.
Oh, is it?
There are various things about this. Completely unfair. It should have been staggered more. But when I phoned into the Sunday programme and Minister Tier was on and his right-hand man, they said, well, men's pensions used to be 70. And I wasn't quick enough to point out, but obviously I was speaking to two men on the radio, because when they started work, obviously they got paid the right amount of job, because most women didn't get paid.
Right.
They started work at 16, 15.
Yeah.
They didn't get paid as much as men.
And is that why women had an earlier pension date?
Oh, no.
There must be a reason for it. I'm not sure. And
we used to die.
Right, okay. I used to... it's one of those things that I knew, and I just can't remember what the reason
men
is.
used to die earlier, so, widows were left with children to bring up, so they got their, widow's pension.
I see, yeah.
You'd have thought women and fellas died early, but the whole point about it is, if you've got clout, you can do something. Because Glenda Jackson, who was a lord or an MP in England, her age group, she managed to move back 2 years, if you see what I mean.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Because she had such clout, they actually sorted out. And then I remember when I went to, when we had the government, Manx government had those road shows around Peel, I mentioned this, said it was unfair because it was being brought in. I was just told, well, we've got to follow what the UK does. Fair enough. Now that we've broken away, surely the Isle of Man can do something of their own to try and make the difference not as great.
Well, yes, except that the Isle of Man government's got no money, so this is a way of getting more money in the pot.
Well, yeah, that's...
that's always that's the bottom line to an awful lot of decisions, isn't it?
Well, it is. And the other thing, of course, they're trying to get the civil service to align your civil service pension age align with the old age pension age.
Oh, I see. Right.
Which is blocking posts for new recruits.
Yes. Yeah, that's sometimes people don't see the knock-on effects of these decisions, do they? So,
and people my wife, she's not very, it just happens if it happens. And
yeah.
The Isle of Man should have written to all their pensions who should have been 60 now. My wife's 61 because she didn't get a pension at 60.
Yeah.
But they should have been written to.
Yeah.
And there was a question in Tynwald where they said under this new arrangement they are going to. That's, and hopefully some MHK might pick up. I have mentioned it to our fellow and he's looking at it. But yes, government is short of money.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think
surprise.
That's going to be the answer to an awful lot of things, isn't it? There are niceties, there are things that our government could do that are different to the UK, but if it's going to cost them more money, I expect that the answer is going to be no.
Save money on all these consultations they keep on having.
Well, yeah, that's been suggested before as well, Ken, yeah. Are these women having a laugh? They're always banging on about equal rights. How about men always having to work until 65? Now they get equality, they don't like it. Silent suppers in your house tonight. Hi, Stu. As women on average live longer than men, the retirement age should be higher than men, says David H. Well, I said that in jest earlier on, but actually the more I think about it, the more it might be a point, mightn't it? Comment here, my wife works in a primary school. Originally, a retirement age was 60. Now suddenly it's 66. She probably wouldn't have minded an extra couple of years, with the majority of people having an extra year added to their working lives. But 6 years is excessive. Yeah, on the face of it, I think you're quite right. This should be reviewed immediately, says Juan. There's very clear evidence that there's still inequality between men and women's pay. Maybe the 6 years of retirement before men is payback time. That from Sarah. What's going on? I recently reached 65 and financially needed to work a little longer, but government make their employees retire. There's no age discrimination law on the island yet, says Liz. That must be irritating. So you wanted to work and they said, no, you're too old at 65, and then they put in the age up for everybody else anyway. It's just, I guess, Liz, it's just one of those timing things. At the end of the day, the government is run like a business. Women live longer, yet have an earlier retirement age, therefore the government have to fork out more. Wouldn't it make more sense to make them women work for longer? Well, that's the plan. Seems fair, and it's all about equality. That's what they're always whinging about. Well, I don't think you could say a bit misogynistic. I don't think they're whinging about it, but certainly the right to comment about it. Our honourable MHKs find it very easy to vote on the tiny state pension, but not so quick to alter their own lavish bankrupting pensions, says somebody else. OK. I hope the new administration will address the disgraceful anomalies in the state pension for women born in the 1950s, particularly those born 1953 to 1955. Some have had their state pension age pushed forward 3 times when fairly close to receiving it, but it's all kept very quiet, so no protest can be made until too late. I think everyone accepted the equalisation of pensions for men and women, but those too close to make other financial arrangements have now been forced up to 66, commencing the 5th of December 2018, without any official notification, so people over 60 will still be expecting to retire at 65. I feel really sorry for those born a day too late. We all have to accept change as long as they're fair, but one group shouldn't lose out over another. Yes, good, thank you for that. What else? As Minister Tear has unilaterally abrogated the UK Social Security Agreement and is doing his own thing with our state pensions, how can anybody say what the age qualifications are going to be for the different sexes? Message about pension. If this change is about alignment and equality, then the option that men come into line with women would be more appropriate, disadvantaging far fewer people. This would increase opportunities for the younger generation to get and remain in work too. The wider context of this decision appears not to have been considered and is ill-advised. Stu, yes, let's reduce the male retirement age, bring us into line with women, that's fair. Also, can we get maternity allowance backdated? Stuart, I feel compelled to write this email after hearing the comments earlier today regarding the subject of pension age of women. When I started work at 16, to retire at 60, I had the time to work out what was best for my future in retirement. I did take out a personal pension, although it isn't a large amount. I received it on the agreed date, my birthday, age 60 last year. Men started their working life knowing that they had to work to 65, same opportunity to manage the financial prospects and adjust accordingly as they got older and move into another type of work if they couldn't manage that particular job in later life. There seems to be a discussion over equality here, but what about fairness, as that seems to have gone out of the window? We're grouping males and females together and assuming that we all are now supposed to be equal, but individually we're all different and have and will be for many years to come. It's a known fact that women generally earn less than their male counterparts. We leave our careers to have children. Sometimes it's difficult to then get back on the same level playing field work-wise and pay-wise. Some women take the career route and with added bonuses of pensions, etc. But as I pointed out recently to someone who's a high earner, I've worked just as hard and probably longer hours, but just couldn't command the rate of pay that they were given. To have the goalposts moved at such a late stage, not given notice, is possibly a breach of our human rights, but most definitely is a slight on women who've consistently worked hard, looked after the family and simply just got on with it. Too many people, and we see them every day getting handouts neither earned nor deserved. Our society seriously needs to change, but not at the detriment to a small proportion of our population who've actually just kept the wheels turning. That from Alison in Ramsey. Some very good points in there as well, Alison. Thank you very much indeed for getting in touch with us. Scrap all pensions and introduce universal basic income, says one of our contributors. What would the benefit of that be? I don't quite understand. You need to explain that to me. Hi, I was born in May 1954. My pension age has changed 3 times, from 60 to 64 to 66. I paid 45 years national insurance. The transition to age 64 has not been honoured, says Laura. Government got no money, Stu. They just got 6 new buses, says Mickey. Yeah, all right, but in the great scheme of things, 6 new buses is a lot cheaper than pensions. Another case of one rule for public sector pensions and another for the people who have to pay for them. Okay. I realise this subject has and will upset some ladies. Equality has always been quoted by some ladies as being unfair when men and women were getting different pay rates. You have to take the bad with the good. A lady said she'll lose $36,000, but if she'll still work, she'll be paid probably more over the extra years, says Norman. OK, I now have to work until I'm 66 to get my state pension. That's 50 years at work. They bang on about equality. Will government give me the same pension as a man who's worked 50 years? A woman's pension was a lot lower, says Carol. I don't know if that's still the case. All the information, I think, is available online at the government website if you want to look at it in detail. If a woman has to wait 6 years to get a state pension, then surely they can sign on for the dole and look for work in between. Not sure. I'm afraid that Liz is wrong at the government 65 and out. There's loads of 65 plus retired teachers, civil servants, police, all over 65. Full payout, full pension, OAP pension, yet still taking obscene salaries from government. Facts, says Frank. Tommy called, it's not a surprise women live longer than men. A woman looks after her health better than a man. She doesn't spend every evening in the pub like a lot of men. A bit of a sweeping generalisation, Tommy, but OK. Equal retirement age, yep, fair, but it's the same women that have been penalised twice, those born after April 53. For example, my wife, born mid-53, should have retired 60 with full pension and Manx supplement. They then changed it first time so that they'd retire at 62 and a half years old. Then some people affected by a second change, 2011, she now retires at 64 and a half. And we're phasing out Manx supplements, so she's losing a lot of money, thousands. Does seem unfair. What's the problem with women working until 65, 66? They wanted equality with men, but seem to moan when they've got to follow the same rules as men have to. Kate Beecroft mentioned a transitional period for women's pension age. I agree. Give them the same transitional period that men were given. None. It was a case of you work until 65, end of, says Mal. The point is, when I and others started work at age 15, 45 years ago, the government made a contract with us which took a mandatory payment from our pay packet, along with a promise to pay us a pension at age 60. But now every time we're within touching distance, we're told we can't have it. That, Stu, is unethical and amounts to fraudulent practice, surely, says Cindy. Hi guys, basically the way I see it, over most people's working life, a person literally is paid in a couple of £100,000 into the government. Also on top of that, the employer's paid in. Yeah. And also many people that have passed away before drawing a pension, all that money's been stolen from the people's pensions by the government. That money should not have been touched. Then they make out that they're doing you a favour when you finally get a pittance back. They always come back with a smart answer which makes them look even more stupid, says Barry. OK. And Mike called, it's dead easy. All you've got to do is to work out how long the average woman will live for, how long the average man will live for, then decide how many years it's fair to have in retirement. Men and women retire at the age which would give them an equal amount of years in retirement. So if the average man is likely to die 5 years earlier than the average woman, then he should retire 5 years earlier. The amount of time men and women spend in retirement should be equal. Well, yeah, but how do you work out the fact that, not everybody lives to the same age is the difficulty with that.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
A new project which aims to give visitors to historic sites and bring them back to life for visitors has been launched by Culture Vannin. Quick response codes, QR codes, at a number of sites around the island will give the public instant access to information about the area and its significance via either a smartphone or a tablet. Tell us more about the project. We're joined in the studio now by historian Charles Gard. Good afternoon, Charles. Thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure.
This really interests me because I love tech when it works, and so often in my life it doesn't work and it doesn't do what it says on the tin. But when it does work, it's fantastic. And it's one thing to watch a video, it's one thing to listen to a piece of audio like that, but to actually stand on that same ground and be able to access this kind of thing is just brilliant, isn't it?
Well, what you've heard there is the short extract from the audio tour. And if you go to Cerrogaro, which is just north of St Jude's up in the north of the island, it's a fabulous site. I was up there the other day and the gorse is all out and it's historic. It goes back, 250 years. You've got your little smartphone, you click on the QR code which is on the post there, and you're immediately taken to the website. Now, if you've got your little earphones or headphones, you can click on play and, as you say, stand on the location in the countryside and have the whole history reenacted in front of you. And
So just tell people about how all this works then, because these QR codes, we've seen them all over the place on supermarket shelves and places like that.
Exactly.
It's a bit like a square barcode, isn't it?
It's exactly that. People say, I don't know what a QR code is, but as soon as you show them the image, they say, it's one of those. It's a square barcode.
You see them on ads in magazines quite often nowadays.
And products, as you say, and in books, and it's all over the place now, on tickets. What you need is your smartphone or your tablet.
Yes.
You need to download the app, which is free. Takes a few seconds. And when you click on the app, the camera on your smartphone becomes activated.
It's like a scanner
It's
almost,
just
isn't
like
it?
a scanner.
Yeah.
And you just hold that in front of the QR code. I'm doing it as we speak.
Right.
And it immediately takes you to
Oh, he's done it, yeah,
within a
fantastic.
split second.
Yeah.
Now, I'm holding the point of air one here. I've got a spare plaque in the studio with me. Instantly, we've gone to the point of air, and on there, you can hear another audio tour. You can see archive photographs. There's lots of interesting text about what you're looking at, and in most of them, there's a little video you can watch as well.
And it's more than you could probably do with traditional signage, isn't it? You can get far more information in there and different media as well.
Well, that's the point. The traditional signs, I did consider putting them up, but they're expensive. They can be thousands of pounds. They're intrusive on the site. They probably get damaged with the weather. And as you say, you can't stream a video, you can't hear audio, you can't update them. If I find a spelling mistake, God forbid, or someone gives me a new photograph, of the top of South Barrule, I don't have to go up to the top of South Barrule. The plaque is there, but it is always linking to the website, which I can access from my computer.
Now, we're bound to get calls from people who say, well, we've not all got computers and smartphones and tablets. Most families, there'll be at least one member that's got the technology to be able to do this, surely.
Well, it's a very interesting point, because you and I, particularly I, are old enough to remember the early days of all this type of stuff, when you brought out a cassette.
Yes.
But then someone invented the CD, and you didn't know whether to bring your latest item out on a cassette or a CD. You had to do both, but you knew eventually that everyone would have a CD, everyone would have a DVD player. And I think, we're looking at legacy here. In a few years, everyone will have got rid of their old plain phones and will have a smartphone or a tablet. So there's no other way of doing it. You have to have a smartphone.
The other interesting thing is that the technology is moving at such a fast pace nowadays that the thing that's important isn't so much the technology that goes behind these things, the infrastructure, it's the content, isn't it?
Exactly.
So as long as you can make it to a high enough resolution, I mean, nobody wants to be shooting video on standard definition these days, for example. As long as you can create good quality origination, then that's the job done, and you can repurpose that into whichever format becomes more prevalent.
You can. Well, no, what you've said is absolutely true, Stu, but I mean, we've both made videos. We both know that we go to a lot of trouble to get the high quality. I suppose it's a bit dispiriting to see your movie viewed on an iPhone. I still like the big screen at home. But in the case of this, it has been scaled to the actual unit you'll be holding in your hand. You're quite right. And of course, the quality that comes through on 4G, if you watch the video on here, it is fantastic. And you're holding it right close to yourself. You've got the audio. So the quality is superb, yes.
I mean, could people, if people decide that they're going to go up to Kerrigaroo and have a look at this, can they access this stuff online without having to use the QR code beforehand?
No.
Right.
I've deliberately done that.
Well, there's a free idea for you then.
It'd be possible for people to do that. I could make it possible. But what I really want is to get people off their backsides and out into the countryside. Yeah. If you go to Kerrigaroo and you go open any one of the sites around the island, at the bottom is a map which shows you where all the other sites are. But I felt it'd be rather cheating if you could just look at all of these at home and never actually go there, because frankly, especially with the audio tour where I'm describing what you're seeing in front of you, you need to be on location.
Of course.
And these are spectacular places. The Point of Air, learning all about the old salt works and the foghorns and all the things that happened up there. Quite a lot of unusual things. And gosh, it's a good day out. It's a walk. It's a pleasant way to spend an afternoon.
Well, I mean, it's ages now since we actually did that little voice recording thing. So there's an awful lot of work, I'm guessing, in putting these together.
There is. There's a lot of research, but I've very much enjoyed doing that. And we've got 12 up. There's another 12 going up in the next few months. So people said to me, wouldn't it be wonderful to stand on Douglas Prom and look at the old archive films? So I've done a site there, lots of archive photographs and the old movies dating back to 1920.
Right.
So you can stand there and see a carnival in 1976, for example, just where you are. And I think that's a real experience. I mean, it's not heavy duty, heavy duty technical material or academic stuff. It's easy to access. Yeah. And if you're out with the family and someone asks, well, I wonder what this was, just click on this. And
well, that's what you want, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're having a look at things like this. I've got my a couple of grandchildren coming coming over in a couple of weeks. We're going to use this because I just think
Great.
it's
Great.
fantastic use of technology.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
That's it for the latest look back at Talking Heads. Our thanks as ever to everyone who took part in the programme. If you'd like to get involved in the discussion, you can call, text or email between midday and 2 p.m. on weekdays, or share your thoughts at any time on the Facebook page. That's Talking Heads with Stu Peters. You can listen back to each day's programme in full using the on-demand section of manxradio.com, and the website's also where you'll find an update of what's being discussed on the programme each day. You can also keep up to date with that information by liking the Facebook page or following Stu Manx on Twitter. And if there's anything you think we should be talking about on the programme, let us know by emailing talk@manxradio.com. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com.
Love being Shaw.
Terms and conditions apply.